one of the more famous studies to be done in psychology is the Milgram Experiment. It's done by Stanley Milgram, and it's about obedience to authority, and also, not as directly, but it's also a study in evil, is what it turned out to be. This it sort of came about after the Holocaust and a lot of cruelty that happened there, and Stanley Milgram was wondering if it was actually evil that was going on, or if they were just following orders, if they were being almost brainwashed, the soldiers that were doing the horrific things. So the study sort of has two layers, so it's hard to explain, but the way it was set up to the people who were brought in, like, well, I'll just have to talk it out and make it very clear for you. So the fake experiment, or what they told the subject what was going on, is that it was a teaching experiment. So teaching. It was like memorization, and of course it's actually about obedience. But the people they called in, they had to be lied to so that they would either obey or not obey according to their own volition. So they brought people in and they said, okay, you're the teacher. You're going to sit here with a bunch of switches in front of you. And what these switches do is, in the next room over, there's a person who is the learner. And these switches have, a little electric cable that goes over to him. I guess there has to be two. And they will give him a shock if he gets the wrong answer. And by answer, I mean they had lists of words. So they would have, like, dog paired with shoe, and, I don't know, tree, and bread. And they would have to, like, match up the pairs. The teacher, who is brought in off the street, would teach this guy the words and the pairs, and then he would have to recite them back, or he would get a shock. But remember, this teaching experiment is the setup. This isn't what he was really trying to find out. This is just what he told the guy. And this is the important part over here. There's the experimenter, who was the experimenter in both, I guess. He said, yes, I'm wearing a white lab coat, and I look very official, so I'm obviously part of the experiment. But the teacher guy that they brought in off the street did not know that this guy was also part of the experiment. He was an actor, or what we call a confederate, which just means that he's in on it. He knows that they're actually studying obedience. Okay? So there's three people. I just have to make sure I'm being very clear. There's three people. The experimenter is saying, I'm doing an experiment, and he's telling this guy off the street that it's about learning, but really what it is that he's giving shocks to this guy, and he's pretending to be hurt. And I have to say, in these doors, the doors are open, so they can hear each other in the hallway. He can hear this guy screaming. And so when the teacher off the street says, oh, it sounds like he's in pain, I don't want to do this anymore, the experimenter guy says, you must go on, or you must continue, or something to that effect. It's important that you continue the experiment, is what this guy says to him. And, well, I said there's a lot of switches, and they went from 15 volts all the way to 450 volts. And I mean, that was a lie. They weren't actually shocking the guy at all, but that was what this guy perceived the voltage to be. And so the results of the experiment was, how far would people go on this scale of just a little bit of hurt, just a little sting of 15 volts, to to really bad pain, capital letter pain, over here at 450. And, I think Milgram was a little bit cynical. He might think that people were a little bit evil in this situation and that they would go all the way up. And people who argue that people are basically good would say, oh no, they'll stop early. They'll hear the guy screaming and feel bad. But it turned out that most people, I think 65% of people, went all the way up. 65% of this guy, well, I shouldn't circle him in white, I've used that for lab coat, but of all the people who sat in this chair, 65% of them went up here. And he did a lot of different variations on it. Sometimes the teacher guy would come into this room and kind of shake hands with them and get to meet him a little bit. And this guy would passively mention that he has a heart condition, and then he'd go around to his teacher chair. And, that didn't have too much of an effect. I think they might have been a little more sympathetic if this guy's yelling, "Oh, my heart, and that's just an actor, though. So I don't know, I hope you understand that there's sort of two experiments going on. That's the only thing about this that's a little bit misleading, is this guy thought that he was doing a teaching experiment. He thought that he was studying the effects of memorizing words when you're being punished for wrong answers. That's what this guy was under the impression of the whole time. But actually, when they finished, they had a debriefing where they would tell the teacher guy, "Oh, yeah, we lied to you. This guy was working for us. He's an actor, laugh it off. We're sorry we lied to you." But the trauma of being in this room, the emotional stress of having to shock someone, even if you aren't really, you think you are, it's real in your mind, is why this is considered unethical now. Even with the debriefing, which is part of an ethics code. And, some of the most interesting experiments that have ever happened, including this one, are now unethical. So, we can't really, well, I mean, it has been repeated in a couple of, like, one that everybody was just actors and it was just for show. And also they would do it again where they would limit to this half of the spectrum. They would only let it go to 200 or 100 or something. I don't think that makes a huge difference in how ethical it is. People don't know what volts really mean, I don't think. But well, I guess just to summarize, the effects that they found was that people really do just listen to people in lab coats. I think if this guy hadn't been in the room, they would have stopped a lot earlier. The experiment would have only gone about this far. So, I don't know if that's an excuse for being evil, but it's an interesting observation to see that people will kind of do bad things if there's someone in a coat telling them to. And that's what we learned from the Milgram experiment.